Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation and thank you for your interest in our case. The 155-year-old University of Theatre and Film Arts is just a tiny speck on the map of the higher education map of Europe. But this tiny little university attracted a crowd of 15,000 people in a protest last week in Budapest. How is that possible? In a nutshell, our institution had to go through a forced transition with light speed. By the end of this transition from public to so-called private institution, we lost all possible guarantees of the university autonomy. In response to this, the academic leaders of the university resigned with 1 month's notice at the end of August. And the same night, the students occupied the building and controlled it since. How did that happen? The autonomy, as the previous speaker said, is a fundamental value guaranteed not only by the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights, but also by the Hungarian Constitution. However, some of the laws implemented in recent years do contradict to these basic principles and open windows to limitations of academic freedom. Several universities, as you heard, went through a similar transition from public to private school, but private with a twist. These universities still live on public money without the public control, without checks and balances. In other words, the autonomy goes to the Board of Trustees instead of the universities. At these universities, the Board of Trustees is appointed directly by the present government for life, and the ministry will hand over the funding rights. The law leaves wide opportunities for the board to interfere with the academic life of these universities. In our actual case, the board grabbed and abused these opportunities. The new DIDA Foundation and the organizational and operational rules went very far. All the basic rights of our Senate were taken away, including, among others, the appointment of directors and heads of departments, including the financial plans and writing and accepting the bylaws. This is far more than violating an abstract idea. This is actual deprivation of the self-governance. All along the months of transition, the academic leaders of the university kept expressing their worries, fears, doubts, and suggesting alternatives. Students issued statements and organized protests. None of our remarks and requests have been responded to. The so-called negotiations were dictates from the government, from the ministry. None of our requests have been listened to. Thousands of world-class artists and hundreds of institutions expressed their solidarity and offered help. Meanwhile, the protesters managed to keep party politics away from the actions. Where are we now? It's a standoff, a war of nerves. The university collective made their requests very clear and would not give in, while the board communicates only by orders and decrees, and the ministry has no intention to negotiate or offer any solutions. And the board went to extremes, changed their own operational rules overnight once again, making clear that the interference is not just an abstract option, but a fact. Appointed 2 vice rectors and heads of departments against the law this time. Last week, in an arrogant and pathetic attempt to solve the problems, the new chancellor cut off the internet connection in the buildings and locked the doors of the classrooms in our buildings, a move unparalleled in the history of our 150-year-old school. After all these months of struggle for independence and peaceful demonstrations, no wonder that supporters by the thousands marched on Budapest streets last Friday. The question is, who will save you from a government that violates its own constitution? Thank you very much.